Land Acknowledgement. As we gather together, we acknowledge the sacred land on which we reside. It has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this gathering place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. Last but certainly not least, we acknowledge the people of African descent who were brought here against their own will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Reconnaissance des terres. En nous rassemblant, nous reconnaissons la terre sacrée sur laquelle nous résidons. C'est un site d'activité humaine depuis 15 000 ans. Cette terre est le territoire des Premières Nations Huron-Wendat et Petun, les Scéniques et plus récemment les Mississaugas de la rivière Crédit. Le territoire était sujet de l'alliance de la ceinture Wampum plat avec cuillère, un accord entre la Confédération Iroquois et Confédération des Ojibwe et des nations alliées à partager et à prendre soin pacifiquement pour les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Aujourd'hui, ce lieu de rassemblement est toujours le foyer de nombreux peuples autochtones de toute l'île de la Tortue et nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir la possibilité de travailler dans la communauté sur ce territoire. Nous sommes également conscients des alliances brisées et de la nécessité de nous efforcer de guérir toutes nos relations. Dernier point, mais non le moindre, nous remercions les personnes d'ascendance africaine qui ont été amenées ici contre leur volonté ou à la recherche d'un endroit sûr où vivre leur vie et élever leurs enfants.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Welcome. We are at the AAP at the BBPA, so Ask a Professional, and you are in for a treat. For those of you who don't know me, I am Moi Fang. I am your host for today, and I am looking forward to this incredible conversation with a brilliant young man. Let me say young man. Darace Rose. Now, I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but I want to take the opportunity just to welcome every single person who has joined. This is our Tech Talk series. It's a final session. Just want to say hello to Diane, Joan, Jummy, Lyndon, Micheline, PP Smith, Ross. Hello, how are you doing? Sarah, Teresa. Now we are at the session 3, the final session for the Tech Talk series, and you're really in for a treat. But before we get started, would you mind just sharing the link? If we can just share the link in the chat, if we can have Victoria, if you don't mind just sharing the link in the chat, please feel free to share with your colleagues. Today, we're talking about cybersecurity and data privacy, a very relevant and necessary topic for us to discuss today. So I'm glad to have each and every one of you tell me, is this your first session? Have you been joining in on the previous sessions of our Tech Talk series? Let me know in the chat. And I'd also love to hear just how you're doing. I was actually coming down with something yesterday and I took the time to show myself some love because it was Valentine's Day. Well, I show myself love every day, but being Valentine's Day, I really, I just rested. I felt myself coming down with something and I rested. I pretty much went to bed at 6 o'clock and that did my body well. So here I am feeling absolutely amazing today. And I'm so glad to have you. I do see you, Pepper Brooks. Thank you so much for joining. And for those of you who are just joining, this is session 3, right, of our Tech Talk series. And without further ado, let me introduce this brilliant young man to you. His name is Darace Rose. And for those, am I allowed to say this, Darace Rose, about the rap situation?
For sure, absolutely. We're
Darace Rose, his parents are actually the owner of Raps. If you guys know Eglinton West, I know there because I lived there when I first came to Canada. So he's the son of the owner of Raps restaurant on Eglinton. So that was pretty neat to find out when I spoke with him because I've passed by Raps like a million times living on Eglinton West. So Darace has worked in the various technology leadership roles, including management, consulting, Chief Information Security Officer, System Designer, and Operational Leader with over 20 years. I mean, he's a young guy, but he has over 20 years experience in the IT industry. He specializes in business analysis, system architecture, system design, and implementation of system security frameworks. His experience includes work in enterprise document management, system procurement, telecommunications, financial management, and inventory tracking systems for both government agencies and commercial organizations. As the head of security at Ample Organics, head of privacy at security at Swift Medical, and vice president of information security at Think Research, Rose developed the Oppos security brand to create market-leading, mature organizations in addition to helping multiple corporations become secure. I hope I said that correctly, but I'm going to invite you to the virtual stage, Darace, and I'm just going to have you, in layman's terms, can you share with us about what you do? I mean, that's incredible. That is incredible. Let us know what you do.
So what I do to boil it down to the simplest method, and thank you everybody for joining, and thank you, Moy, for such a gracious introduction. Basically what I do is protect our companies, people that work with me, from scammers, fraudsters, and all type of crook that are navigating on the cybersecurity landscape today. A lot of us, especially from back home in the Caribbean, and even been here for some time, we understand physical security. So lock your door, turn on your security system at nighttime, make sure that you have a lock that is actually engaged on all your vehicles, maybe put on your alarm. But where I find there's a gap is really in the cybersecurity landscape. So your data on your systems, your data in your internet, email, how you share that information on your social channels. And so that's why I like to talk to people about, just so that they're aware and up to the time with what's going on from a cybersecurity risk perspective.
And you know what, we're so glad to have you. Welcome everyone. Again, we are session 3, which is our final session of our Tech Talk series. Thank you for explaining that to us, Darace. I'm certainly guilty of just the lack of security. Sometimes I don't always lock my door, right?
Oh, wow.
So I know what that's like from that sort of physical perspective. So as it pertains to the phones, the systems that we use, oftentimes we shy away because we don't understand it, but I'm so glad to have you. So without further ado, I'm going to step away and then have you just share with us. I know you have a presentation. You can go through your presentation and we'll welcome questions afterwards. So please feel free to ask all the questions, and you still do have time to share the link as well.
Awesome. Thanks again so much. And again, yes, thank you, Moy. There is a brief presentation that I have here. If you do have questions, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the discussion. So a little bit about me. As mentioned, I'm co-founder of Oppos Cyber. Worked 20 years in technology roles. About half of that time specifically focused on cybersecurity. Previous roles that I've held include Chief Information Officer, Chief Security Officer, VP of Technology, as well as Technology Transformation Consultant for the Business Development Bank of Canada. My organization, Oppos, actually provides about 200 companies today with cybersecurity services and products. We help them either comply with various standards in order to operate in different jurisdictions, both here in Canada, in Europe, as well as in the United States. We also help them to certify with different standards. A lot of it is subsidized or supported by the federal government. And if anybody on the call wants a little bit more information about that, please see me after. I'll have my contact information on how you can actually access these services as well, free of charge, if you're the leader of or work within an organization that is based in Canada. These are some of our customers. Some of them were mentioned earlier. But today I want to talk to you, very excited actually, to speak to you guys a little bit about the new oil, right? And we're all sitting on it. It's called data. And how we use it and share it or give access to hackers and scammers is actually could be, anywhere from, a little impact to completely obliterate your company, like destroy your livelihoods. And so that's why I really impress upon everybody that I know, especially within my community, how to protect themselves and really be cyber secure. And it's not as difficult as most people think. Just a little bit of information, like last year, between 600 billion US and 225 billion US were stolen from like scammers and fraudsters, essentially. And a lot of it came from credit card swiping. I was telling Moy the other day about this new mortgage fraud that's actually become quite popular, especially when people post when they're leaving for long trips or cruises. They'll come back and their home has been, not only has all the equity been taken out of it because of an imposter, but also it's been resold to another fraudulent person. And it's really, really something that I'd like everybody to take a look at and think about, especially if you're a homeowner. So I'm going to give you a little bit of news you can use to protect both your businesses and your homes. And then I'll give you 3 easy to use tips that everybody on this call today can implement today to actually make sure that you're cyber secure. And it's not going to be rocket science related, but it's definitely some easy steps that we can all take to make ourselves a bit more cyber secure as well as our businesses. The first thing I wanted to let you know is that in cyber, a lot of people think, well, what do I have to lose? Or nobody's not going to be looking for me because I'm too small. I'm just a little shop owner on Eglinton. Nobody's going to need my data, right? That is not the assumption that you want to take. Essentially, what happens is it's a mass commodity market. So if they can steal 10,000 pieces of ID, 10,000 credit card numbers with the CCVs and addresses, they'll sell that on something called the dark web, and you probably won't even know about it as a bunch of, like, one of many people's information. And it happens on a regular basis every day. It's sad to say. It's very good if you could once a year, twice a year, do a scan of the dark web to see if any of your personal or financial information is available there. And if you do find some, to take the right necessary, what we call remediation or protection procedures, inform your bank, inform Equifax and the credit reporting agencies so that you can be protected against any potential fraud. So what I like to say is protect your crown jewels. And a lot of us from soccer, it was the World Cup this year, so many of us will understand this position where there's a free kick, you protect the net, protect your goalie as much as possible. Same thing goes when you're dealing with cybersecurity and data. You want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to protect your crown jewels and protect your net or your goal from being scored on by these hackers. And it's pretty easy if you have a methodology that you can follow. Realistically, it's finding and securing that weak link amongst your technology, and that could usually be your smartphone. Sometimes it's your laptop. A lot of the times, though, majority of the times, it's with social media and how we use it or choose to use it. So I'm going to talk and give a few useful tips that we all can do so that we're protected, especially when we're interacting on social media. Not telling anybody to cancel their social media, just potentially change how you interact with it. But first, before we get into social, the other area is, and this is where a lot of, like, I talk to my father about this a lot, and so I'm just assuming that if some of us are from the, me and Moy are very young here, so the older generation, if you can make sure that if the smartphone sends an update, it's not like a time drain and not something that's designed to just waste your day. It's actually very important to update your phone as soon as the updates come down from it. So if you see that the App Store or the Play Store, if you use Android, is saying, oh, you have all these updates available, it's not like a nice to have or something that you should leave to a later time. You should especially if it's related to your banking apps or even your operating system for your phone, I would strongly suggest doing it on receipt of that notification. It is so, so critical because essentially they're trying to patch a hole that a hacker has exploited to protect you. Okay. The other thing is jailbreaking your device, not a recommended thing. So basically, to get all these free apps, nothing is free. When you get these free applications, the hacked videos, a lot of them have what's called malware or malicious software embedded in this information that you're consuming. And a lot of the times it gets put onto your devices without your knowledge and used to either steal your information or worse, steal information from others, using your devices as like a facilitator for that attack. So far, update your phone, update your desktops, update your laptops. Very important. Okay, moving on. Social media is almost like a thieves' playground right now, or a scammer's playground. Why? A lot of us go on social media. We're excited to say, hey, can't wait for that vacation. I'm going away to Jamaica, or I'm going away to Trinidad for Carnival, counting down the days, it's only 5 days. But you also have to remember that social media is very public, right? So unless you know every one of your friends that you've associated with on these different websites, there could be people out there that are just looking for this information and are gathering what we call a profile on you. And what a profile means is basically somebody who goes to all of your social media sites, adds you as a friend, even though you may or may not know them. They probably create a false persona in your industry or in your friend network, associate themselves with other friends of yours, right? And then you think when you see the friend request come through, oh, well, he knows Moy and he knows Ross, must be somebody credible. Let me add them to my network. And now they have a complete visibility to your actions and movements. There are people out there today that their whole job is to understand where Moy is today and where Moy is going to be tomorrow. She's going on a vacation, perfect. And that's where things like this whole mortgage title fraud occurs. When you're going on a vacation for multiple weeks, they can facilitate a land transfer to somebody else's name using fraudulent documentation. That's after, of course, taking all the equity out of your properties, maxing out all your credit cards, etc. Then you come home, your home has been resold. You no longer have access to your own property. It's real. If you Google it right now, mortgage title fraud, there was a very popular case that actually got announced about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but this has been happening for the last 15 years. Right. So please be careful about how you share information online and make sure that if it's not something where you're okay if everybody knows. For example, you can always tell people about your trip to Trinidad when you get back. You can take all those awesome pictures in the Carnival and share it when you're home and safe, curate them. You can tell a story about it. But sharing it in real time may not be in your best interest, especially if you're leaving in a home or even a home with children that are unprotected. So the big lesson there is protect your privacy online and what information you share. The other lesson is making sure that you actually make sure that you don't share access to your profile with others inadvertently. If you're participating in some type of business opportunity that you've heard about online, most recently, a lot of my clients have heard about this whole this Bitcoin investing scheme where if you send me $400, I'll give you back $20,000. And all you have to do is share like your profile password with me and some information with me, and then I'll be able to manage it for you, which is all, of course, a fraud. They take the $500, but the whole scam is not really your $500. It's everybody in your network that they want to kind of market this scam to, holding you accountable, saying if you do not provide a video saying that you made a lot of money for this, I'm basically going to extort you. And so that type of behavior is actually happening online a lot more as well. So it's very important for you not to, like if you're ever propositioned by a Bitcoin or some type of blockchain investment, that I would just block that and report that contact as quickly as possible. And you can see some of the stats here that have been pulled from the Internet Center for Internet Security. So, 77% of Facebook users have been hacked. 35 on Instagram, 24% on Twitter, right? So we just want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to ensure that we're protecting our social media and all applications that we leverage on the internet. Now, I've told you all this scary stuff, and there's a lot of opportunities, and a lot of us are very concerned probably because of, what have I put on social media? Are my passwords secure? I'm going to give you 3 steps today, simple steps that you can take away with you right now. And you can raise your security posture and limit the risks from a cybersecurity perspective, as well as ensure that your data is maintained and kept private. Simple steps. So the first one, multi-factor authentication. So Both Google and Microsoft have a free application called the Authenticator. If you do not own it, I strongly recommend that at the end of this call, or even while we're on this talk, go to the Play Store or go to your App Store, download Authenticator, both Microsoft and Google, and start basically hooking this Authenticator up to all of your applications. And what it is it'll either send you a text message with a code. It'll ask you for a set of random numbers that randomly change on your phone every 5 minutes or every 2 minutes. And that code validates that, Darace is Darace and Moy is Moy when logging into the system. And how it kind of works is if I've stolen your password, we're hoping that I have not also stolen your phone. And so I got your password, but then the text goes to Moy saying, hey, put in this code. If you did not ask for a code from, let's say, Google or Microsoft or wherever you're going, then you know that somebody's trying to hack your account. The other benefit is if they do not put in that code that was sent to your phone, Microsoft or Google will not allow them in access into those systems. And that's where you're protecting yourself. So first thing to do, go to the Play Store or the App Store right now and download the Authenticator app from Google or Microsoft. Second piece, complex passwords. Something else I've talked to my parents about a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. That is not a secure password. That is also the most popular password on the planet. I don't know why, year after year. The second most popular password is actually password. And then the third most popular password is password with a capital P. These are all not examples of good passwords. If you go to my website, Oppos or getoppos.com, we have a password generator. Google has a password generator. They have a password manager tool that you can also use as well. Password management is something of question right now because one of the larger password management companies, LastPass, was recently hacked. So there's ways to go about managing passwords that I can recommend. But the biggest piece that I would say is have a passphrase, maybe your kids' names and their birth year, or something that is specific to you and you and your family, so that it's a passphrase as opposed to a password. The longer and stronger that the password is, the less likely it is to be hacked by somebody who steals your information or somebody's using a random password generator to actually try to hack into your systems. So that's the first piece about password management. The second piece about password management is you want to rotate or change those passwords on a regular basis. I personally change mine once every 30 days, but once every 90 days is probably more acceptable and more realistic. But again, having a complex password that is changed regularly is very important. And then the last piece that I'd like to talk about is having a vulnerability management plan. When's the last time you updated your devices, your phones, your computer, your laptop? Any technology that you use usually has like an update mechanism with the manufacturers. Please ensure that all your devices are always kept up to date. And if you don't check on a regular basis, you may want to every 6 months, almost like your fire plan, which is basically understanding how to get out of your home in the event of a fire. It's almost like a fire drill. Around that time, usually it's when the clocks go forward and backward, I would also just take a look at all your devices, because that's how it is nowadays. Like, technology has become so ubiquitous or so used by our community and everybody that we have to start realizing that every device is an open mic and an open camera to your yard or to your house, right? And so if you don't lock it down, people can listen, people can see, take pictures with, and so it's very important for you to know what vulnerabilities may exist there. The easiest way to understand this is like, if you wouldn't sleep with your door unlocked, everybody but Moy, right? If you wouldn't sleep with your door unlocked, then you should probably make sure that you have all protections on your devices too, because usually you don't have like your bank information, your travel information, all of that's on your smartphone just available like that. So ignorance is not bliss. Most technical users don't know cybersecurity knowledge. So I put this there because a lot of the times I'm told, oh, well, don't worry, I talked to my tech guy up the street and he says everything's fine. There's a very big difference between information technology support, which this is where I started in IT, in technology, and cyber, which is almost a completely different domain. I would strongly recommend, if you're getting cybersecurity advice from an information technology professional, that you get a second opinion from somebody who focuses specifically on cyber. Not because they're not great people and they're not really smart in IT, but it's just a different discipline. One is to operate the technology and the other is to really break it and leverage the data for nefarious gains. And then last but not least, with one of my favorite artists from back in the days when I was younger, a gentleman named Terra Fabulous. otherwise known as Cecil Campbell, said, action, not a bag of mouths. So the biggest thing you can do for cyber right now is download the authenticator. Make sure your passwords are not easily reproduced, and making sure that your stuff, your gear, your infrastructure, your equipment is always patched and up to the latest level. And you have antivirus on all your stuff as well. Very important. Microsoft now, if you have a Windows machine, has a free Defender system that you can download as an antivirus. So you don't even have to buy it, to be honest with you. And that was basically it for my quick presentation. I'd love to kind of open it up for questions. And this is my contact information. You can scan it right off the QR code. We're always available. We do post a lot of information about cyber threats and how to stay cyber secure. And if you are interested in understanding how the government federal programming can assist you in your business and in becoming cyber secure and how we could help with that at no or low cost to you and your organization, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to support the community in any way I can. And with that, I'll pass it over to Moy to facilitate some questions.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much. You can, if you've all documented Darace's information, you can close off your screen if you'd like, Darace, and we can also share it in the chat as well. You know what? It was a brief presentation, but it was filled with so much nuggets, so many nuggets. There's so many questions that I personally have. Like, let me ask this first question before I get into the chat. Now, what I've seen lately is text messaging coming through saying, hey, I've transferred the funds. And I delete those. I delete those right away. Like, I don't even respond. But can you share a little bit more about that? Do you know?
Yes, so that's called swishing, because it's SMS phishing. So phishing is a term for when you get an email like that says, hey, we've sent a fund, or you may get a note like, hey, Moy, it's Victoria. I just wanted you to send this email transfer of 20,000 since Ross is unavailable today, because they know that Ross is traveling based on his social media, for example, right? So that's an extension of that scam. The best protection against that is actually having an antivirus on your phone that actually looks at your text messages and scans them. Two reasons why that's important. It protects you against malicious links, and it also shares that information with a greater database. You also get the information from that database. So if it's a known scam, they'll also protect against it too. 90% of the times when you have an active antivirus on your phone, it'll actually not even show you those texts. So you don't even risk hitting on it, because it'll just block it and put it in a quarantine.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, let me ask you another question as it pertains to, okay, let me go to this question first. How do you search the dark web for your information? I'll ask that first, but there was another question I wanted to ask regarding the text.
So there's a couple of tools. If you want to do it personally yourself, there's a group, there's a freeware called spiderfoot.io. So if you use spiderfoot.io, you can go and do a Tor search using, so Tor is the browser, or one of the browsers that you can use to navigate the dark web. Now, before you do that, I would strongly recommend leveraging somebody like me, or who kind of know the kind, because the dark web is not the public facing internet. It is a place where only the rough and criminal kind of partake in these conversations. And so if you go down there trying to poke and, oh, let me just see what's happening, they'll be, oh, there's a newbie here, let me just grab everything from them. And if they put malware from Tor or from the dark web onto your system, it could be a backdoor for your entire environment into the dark web, right? And you can Google things like the Silk Road or other applications that have been kind of brought down that were hosted on the dark web, and see how it's like. So for example, the Silk Road is where if you wanted to buy like illegal firearms and illegal controlled substances, they would like have almost like an Amazon that would drop ship it to your house type of thing, right? And so the FBI and the CSIS had to get involved to kind of break that up. But it's really not a place where I would suggest laymen go. But yes, if you want to, in a safe way, there's a web application called spiderfoot.io. And then you can do like a dark web search. I think it has a max out of once a month, because it is an extensive search. There's another really cool tool called OSINT, so OSSINT, which is basically an offensive security mapping that allows you to figure out where all your information is, even on the public internet as well, because you may have access to some of your information on public internet that you're not aware of, social media. So it does like a good scan of the public internet and the social media channels as well, to see if your password and financial data is available in any of those sites.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now, please, I don't see any questions yet in the chat. Maybe if we can just ask your questions. I'm sure a few of you might have questions to ask. What I wanted to mention was, I remember there was you talked about the protection, what the antivirus. There was an antivirus link, or there was a pop-up that came onto my computer. This was like a couple months ago, and it said something about your computer has been infected. And I clicked on the link because at that time it said something about Microsoft. Click on the link, clicked on the link, only to see that I ended up exiting, but I think that in itself was fraud. And so how do we protect ourselves? Like, how do we know how to differentiate or to decipher or discern, what is fraud and what isn't? Does that?
So, yeah, for sure. No, thank you for the question. And I think the easiest way or the most simple way, never click on a link from any website. If you think it's from Microsoft, close that out. Don't click on it. Go to Microsoft.com yourself, right, in your browser, and procure their security services. The first thing. The second thing is, if it's ever too good to be true, it usually is. So if they're saying they're going to give you a bag of cash or they're going to do this thing for free for you, it's usually a lie. It's something they use ADA principles, like marketing principles, right? So they're trying to get your attention, to gather your interest, to get your desire. So you click on that link. It's the same for like a generic advertising campaign for any, consumer facing business. And so you just have to make sure to understand that you do not want to be, bait or fished by any of these attacks. And I go back to the antivirus every time. If you have a, Microsoft Defender, Kaspersky, any of these tools that are available to us updated, it will protect against those risks.
Wow. I mean, I know you're not here to instill fear, but I'm telling you, technology is wonderful. It's great. We heard it the last couple of weeks, right? But there certainly is, we definitely do have to take precaution. There's an individual PP that says, please tell me if there are any antivirus apps that you can recommend for the cell phone.
Oh, sorry, you just broke up a little bit for me. Any apps for the antivirus on the cell phone?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so for sure. So I personally use something called Kaspersky. I can put the link in the chat when we're done. They have a really good suite of antivirus technology for your tablets, your smartphones, and your endpoint devices. Windows Defender, which is the one that is proprietary to Windows or Microsoft, that's a really good tool as well. Although I think for the phone, I prefer to recommend Kaspersky. It's worked well for me.
Can you say that again? What's the name of it?
Kaspersky. I'll put the link in the chat. Give me 1 second.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And this is not a question, but Quincy wants to share that he got scammed just 2 days ago. They tried to steal $370 from his account. So he's saying that we should not trust, don't trust callers claiming to be big companies. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Trust. Thank you.
Absolutely, right? And if a big company is calling you asking for something, hang up the phone and call the number on the back of your card, always. Absolutely. Yes, I have heard of the Indigo cyber attack. I did. It's unfortunate because he's a call. So I know the gentleman personally that actually is responsible for that. And it goes back to vulnerability management at the end of the day. So there was an exploited hack. It was a printer spooler related activity. Print spooler is basically the system in your computer that tells the printer to print what is on your screen. There was a hack called Print Nightmare. It was around about last summer. And not a lot of people took it as seriously as they should, because it's a print server and I have AV, so it should protect it. But if you looked into that hack, it was actually something that was very, very malicious. And so that's why in Windows 11, Microsoft actually took it upon themselves to just put that into their technology. Anyhow, Indigo did not patch that server, so vulnerability management was missed and somebody exploited it. And it took them offline for like, what, a week? It wasn't worth it. If they had just done the simple patching of it, would have probably taken them down for, I don't know, a few hours, and then they would have had no, because now it's not only about the hack and restoration of services or the opportunity loss from all the customers that couldn't use the POS system. It's about the reputational risk for the largest book company in the country, right? How do you get back from that? Yahoo was never able to get back or recover from that. Equifax was never able to recover from that.
Wow. Pretty scary stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that. Any other questions? Jimmy says, or Jummy My card was used 5 times in total of $17,000. The chat is going by really quickly, so bear with
Yeah.
me. Can you see that? Can you see the question that Jummy just
Yeah,
mentioned?
I saw Johnny. My card was used 5 times for 17 G's on a clothing website. How do you prevent this from happening? So, Johnny, call your card provider and have them verify anything over $500. That's how I usually do it. You can
Mm,
also mention that if you tell them that you have a young person that you're responsible for that's recently going off to school, they're very quick to put these kind of limiters on for you, so they'll call you for large purchases. Also, you if it happens on your credit card, you should not be responsible for, like, online fraud is actually covered by the card providers. And so if it's something where the bank's trying to stick you with the bill, reach out to me, because that technically is a no-go for any online fraud that's deemed not to be you as a source, right? So give me a shout and I can probably help you navigate that if they're trying to stick you with the bill.
thank you so much. Quincy, I heard you. Okay, I do apologize for that sincerely. Okay, so McNaughton says he got an email purporting to be CEO. Oh, really? Got an
Yeah,
email
that's
purporting to
CEO
be
scam.
from our CEO Nadine, wanting to surprise staff with gift cards that I should purchase and share the images with her. Fortunately, I
Yes.
didn't bite. Wow.
Very good, but not. That's amazing, and that's what it is, right? And sometimes they'll be tracking to know that Nadine is here or not here. Maybe she's off on a business trip in the States or something like that. That's when they strike, when they know that she's not readily available. Sounds like something in her purview. Um, I'm glad that you were not able to fall for that one, though. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Good
So no
stuff.
money
Now,
was refunded by the bank. It was a credit card. Absolutely, yeah. So all credit card fraud is covered by the banks, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about it. It's just they understand how difficult it could be to navigate these waters, and so their insurance actually covers that off.
nice. And I love that other, go ahead, go ahead. I love that other question from Quincy. If you can
Yes.
address that.
So yeah, how we can get into the cyber field. So I do talks with a lot of the nonprofits that are helping to, like, Springboard and some other groups, helping people to kind of get into it. What I recommend when I'm speaking to those young people that are trying to get into cyber is there is a small designation. I shouldn't say small. There's a designation that is very general. It's called Security Plus. It's run by the CompTIA, which is a very reputable, same people that run uh, Network Plus and a bunch of other technology related certifications. Security Plus is probably the least difficult cybersecurity certification to kind of get over. If you do Security Plus, and you don't have to actually take the physical exam, but just go through the content, and that still interests you after, I would strongly recommend reaching out to the Toronto Metropolitan University Cybersecurity Catalyst. I am a member there, and I can help you get into some free training programs that are offered by the government. I think it's about 40K worth of trainings that RBC and the federal government have decided to kind of invest in. And I can try to put you in contact with the people that run that program, and then they can get you the certifications you need, as well as put you in the entry-level positions that will start your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I hope you're all taking note, and thank you for the questions that are coming in, and keep them coming. We're here till about 1. How about installing games apps on our phones? Jummy's concerned because their kids plays games on the phone, on their phone.
Yeah. So Jeremy, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. So what you probably need to do, Jeremy, is download an app called Family Safety. That's also available. It's for free from Microsoft. I just put a link in the chat for those of us that want to get involved in cyber. That's the Ryerson Cybersecurity Catalyst. There's a lot of information on the training programs that are available to you, as well as just entry-level information that if you want to get into the space. With regards to Jummy's question about games on phones, I will say that kids and unfettered access to these apps and the internet is also a huge risk, because a lot of these malware generating companies leverage these games, like they look like Candy Crush and such, where you can play. You think you're playing a game, but they're actually accessing information. So I would be very cautious, not if you're operating without an AV, and at a minimum put your Family Safety app on your network, install it on everybody's phone, kids and everybody, so you can start to track not only the games they're using and all that, but also the time. Because for me, like in my house, 2 hours a day during the week, maybe 4 or 6 on the weekends. In China, they can't use the phone until the weekend, and it's only like 4 hours on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. There's a reason for that. I believe, even though I'm a technology professional and I love it when our people are in tech, you can't have the kids uncontrolled on the tech. You have to limit their access, because these applications are actually designed by, even the good ones, the companies that are not trying to hack you, like Facebook and all, they're designed by like top level psychologists to keep everybody on the phone, almost like addicted to crack type of thing. We have to give, there's a time and place. Just putting it out there. Family safety, I'll get the link to that as well from Microsoft.
That is amazing. Pepper Brooks wants to know, do we leave our computers on at night or do we leave it off? I need to know this question, because the answer to this question.
From a computer perspective, for me, I shut it off in the nighttime, but I do have one box that's always sleeping, just in case one of my customers runs into an issue in the middle of the night. It's really up to you. I think that if you want to limit your surface area of attack or limit the risk, shut off your machine. Because the reality is, if somebody is on your system without your knowledge, they can then control your machine on the hours when you're not using it. And it can be used as a launch pad, could be used to mine Bitcoin, could be used for various different purposes, right?
Lyndon says the government is currently giving grants to the Black community for studying technology. And I think you do have some information regarding that, right, Darace?
Yeah, I did. So if you work with that link at the TMU, also there's a course at Springboard that we're working with them to deliver. And there's a few others, actually. It's not only those two in the space. If you go on to the Catalyst and you see something that you're interested in, we can actually get those funds allocated to that program. I think it's like a $500 stipend that would be covered if you're interested in it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of funds and resources available, not only for our community, but just in general, because it is a national security priority, cybersecurity. And so they're training and throwing, that's why there's also these government programs. Let's say, for example, you have a company and you need it to be secured, they will actually pay me to secure your company. That's how important it is from a federal government perspective.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. So Quincy says, can the cybersecurity certificate and entry-level position be taken and completed as a side hustle? I'm still in school and pursuing an entirely different career, but much like you, Quincy, I think I'm a little bit intrigued too when it comes to technology now.
Absolutely. Like cybersecurity needs, because it's a lot of people that have been immersed in tech that then jump into cyber. They need people that are like on the retail side in psychology in different areas, because that's how we get different perspectives as a domain, right? Like we're only looking at it, majority of us, from a like technology operations or technology development or technology architecture perspective, because that's where most of us are from. But as other people that are in different walks of life or different ways of earning income come to the table from a cyber perspective, you can probably see other ways where you can protect yourselves and people like yourselves from a cyber perspective.
Nice, nice. Now we're welcome more questions. Please feel free to ask your questions. Darace is here. He's doing an excellent job at answering them. I do want to find out though, just from a show of hands, how many of you have been hacked, like on social media? So whether it be Instagram, Facebook, or I'm not sure where the other platforms that you mentioned. How many of us have been hacked on social media?
Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok.
Oh, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. Okay, constantly on Facebook. Wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
77% of users have been hacked on Facebook.
Okay, so especially on Instagram, I've gotten a lot of, you talked about the Bitcoin people, right? So they'll, what would you call it? Start following these. Now I'm old school, as you know, Darace, as I was sharing with you, I'm very old school. So when people start following me, I ask questions. Well, who's this person and why are they following me? So typically what I do is I go to their profiles and then I will go through, just sort of look at it. A lot of the images are posted like within the last day or so, right? And then I realized that they might very well be copying someone else, right? Cloning someone else. And oftentimes, or most times, or all the times that I've actually done that, they have been, and I've just reported it right away. So do get in the habit of looking to see who is following you. Like I said, I'm a bit old school. I think there are benefits to that, to being old school.
Suss them out. You have to look into it, right? You gotta look
Absolutely,
into that.
absolutely.
Yes, and
So
change
Sarah,
your password often. I love that. Yes, every month, it's the way to go.
now, Mr. Technology person, I'm going to ask you, how do we keep track of all the passwords that we have? Like we have a million passwords. And mine state, I hope there aren't any hackers on here because I've just told people that I don't lock my door and now I'm telling you that I don't change my passwords.
This is
I
a good
rarely change
example of
my
what not
password.
to do. This is a good example of what not to do. This say so for everybody who's listening. But we're in a closed environment. Um the best, so what I use for my password management, so that same tool I talked about, Kaspersky, they have an awesome password management tool that is will basically anytime you go to a site that asks you to put in a password, it'll create like a secure password for you and it'll store it in your AV tool. So anytime you go to that website, it'll actually populate on your computer for you. The other one that I use is Google Password Manager, because Google also does a check for where the passwords have been breached. If you have some passwords that have actually been, excuse me, involved in other password breaches, they'll actually alert you to change this password because it was discovered online. So I use the Google Password Manager, and you know what? I will put that link in the chat as well.
Oh, you are a darling. Thank you so much. So Stephanie wants to know, why do you think Facebook is so high for hacking?
I think Facebook is suffering because they have they're the most popular people in the house. So they've been around the longest. And so what happens when it's like the McDonald's situation for Facebook,
Hmm.
unfortunately. So, you know, everybody sells coffee, but when the woman at McDonald's burns her leg, that's who gets the $16 million lawsuit, because they're the big guy. And they're also, in addition to the ones that get hacked all the time, they're also the ones that get the fines all the time. So not necessarily here in North America, but over in Europe, they're governed by a legislation called the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. GDPR breaches, they start at like 5% of your top line revenue. So for a company like Facebook to get like a multi-billion-dollar fine, and if you Google multi-billion-dollar privacy fines, they're all out of Europe, and that's kind of why Facebook um, also gets hacked a lot, because a lot of these people see it as like the target where everybody is type of thing, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then the
Yeah, and
regulators, it's like the only social channel they know. So I almost feel it for them, even though there's other reasons why I don't like them, like the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. And so I'm of two minds when it comes to Facebook. But for the hacking, it's really just because they're the most popular game in town and been around the longest.
Sarah says, thankfully, her followers alerts her right away instead of responding to the request. Well, that's amazing. So please, if get into the habit of alerting your friends and the people that
Yes.
you know. Yes, get into the habit of doing that. Let me just see. There are a few questions
There was
there.
a
I'm not
great
sure.
one here.
Mhm.
Zoom hacks during 2020 scale, right? So Zoom was set up initially and has been for, since it started, just as a little meeting thing. Nobody really thought that the whole world was going to start using it for 2 years straight to do everything from school to life and work and everything. So what happened was they scaled exponentially overnight and didn't have the ability to put in the necessary security protocols as they scaled, especially on the schools. So a lot of the schools engage with them without. This is before like Microsoft kind of fixed Teams. So Microsoft, because of their maturity and their experience in the enterprise space, was able to actually kind of secure a lot of that video traffic, where Zoom was just learning that for the first time during 2020. So they were able to scale, grow, bring in the right resources, and fix a lot of things. A lot of that also came from New York City saying, well, if you want to be used in our school system, which is about the size of the Canadian government for everybody on the call, then if you want this contract, you're going to fix this now. And so that forced them in early 2021 to update all of their systems so that they could comply with what's known as the SHIELD Act in the upper state of New York, which is their privacy legislation. So that's
Thank you.
the technical answer.
Thank you. So Lyndon, I thank you for sharing the Keeper for Password Manager. So you've shared the link there. Thank you for sharing that. Darace, did you want to?
No, we're good. That one
We're
works.
good.
And then, do we have to comply with GDPR in Canada? We do not yet. That's a very good question, Pepper. It's interesting. I think you sound like you're somebody who has some experience with that, but no, we do not. But the EU has told Canada and the US, if you do not comply or raise your security standards, we will basically treat like a stranger when dealing with their residents, which has caused like California to really step up because all these social companies are kind of based in California. So that's why California now has the strictest privacy law in North America. It's called the CCPA. We have a couple of customers that we help go through it. It's actually good. It's nowhere close to GDPR though, but it's a really good start for North America to follow. Texas has another one. Shield I mentioned from New York. So all the states have actually come up with, especially when you have a lot of technology companies there, because they didn't want to be cut off from the EU. Because the EU doesn't play. They'll just, oh, you don't want to listen? Cut you off. And Canada also changed their standards January 1st to be more in line with GDPR as well. But no, the answer is you do not have to comply with them 100%. Only if your Canadian organization is selling to European residents. And if that's the case, there are government supports in place to get your company up to GDPR. And we have done that a few times now.
Certainly. So so Pepper Brooks does have another question, but let us get to, there was one that I was just about to ask. In the company context, Milton, I think I do know the answer to this one, but what are your thoughts about having a cybersecurity expert on staff versus using consultants?
So if you have budget, I would say do both, because the consultant usually is more up to the time, whereas you have somebody who know the kana. So I think it's important to have a multifaceted approach where your old groom who's on your staff, who you trust and rely upon day to day to get your guys going and can jump on a breach or a hack at any time and is going to do his best efforts. But if you have access to like a retainable expert on staff that is always fixing these issues day and night, he can actually be an advisor to your local cybersecurity person. And I find that works well because, even though I'm an expert, I still have to kind of bounce things off of others to get a great understanding of things, right? You always need to have, trust but verify is what Reagan would have said, right? So you have somebody on staff, but you verify their knowledge with a competent consultancy. And then if you do get hacked, you can always extend on those resources if you need to support your staff and your operation.
Thank you so much for that. So does GDPR affect SEO? Is that something that you know, or does Pepper Brooks need to do some other research?
Unfortunately, I do know because of the marketing stuff that we've done. So if you're, again, selling into European companies and you do not have the GDPR requirements, like when they're signing up, acknowledge a privacy policy, acknowledge, like there's just 3 check boxes that you'd have to acknowledge. If you don't have that, then it could affect your page ranking if you're operating in Europe or selling into European organizations. But for the general question, which I think is the context under which you asked it, it does not affect like SEO, and they're related but not linked, if that makes sense.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Pepper Brooks. There is another security link, Darace, that you mentioned to place on the phones. Do you remember what that is? Because they're asking for you to repeat that, and I take terrible notes, so I can't even see if I've written it down.
Yeah, I had mentioned there's family safety. I'll just download the phone app here. It's this is for the kids, right? And I'll also put the Kaspersky phone antivirus on here as well. I saw a question there about the TMU Catalyst as well. So the TMU Catalyst training programs, they usually take about 9 months. I think the last one started this month, and so you can apply for the next cohort. If you reach out to that department and you get a roadblock, or if there's any questions there, I talk with the director of that every 60 days or so. So reach out to me and I can try to push it forward if you're having issues. And then I'm just going to.
IT specialist at Kaspersky is from Russia, and they collect North American information.
Yeah, I know that comes up. That's like more of a soundbite, to be honest with you. So if you want, you can go with McAfee, or you can go with Symantec or Proofpoints and other. I'm just saying, for me, cost-wise, as a kid from the community, I think Kaspersky works well. He's pretty much the only ally we have in Russia right now. And even Krebs has said there's nothing wrong with his tech. Krebs is like the bee's knees of the security industry. Or you can use Bitdefender too. You can use Bitdefender too. Okay. Like, for me, I'm not that tech guy. It's like, oh, you have to use my stuff or else. As long as you use something that's competent and you're comfortable with, that's really my take on it. Kaspersky to me is like the leader in the space, but there's a lot of other good leaders in the space too, like, So
that's good. Thank you so much for that, Darius. Let's get to the other question by Diane. It says, on the risk management side of things, what are the best ways to back up data and access to one's systems?
um, personal preference. I like Datto is a great tool. There's one called Verto. It really depends on what your needs are from a risk management perspective. If you have to comply with a standard or baseline based on your industry or maybe a client requirement, and then I would tailor my backup strategy to that requirement of your customers. Most standards like SOC or ISO 27001 are going to ask that you have a backup strategy in place, but I'd really tailor it to your client's requirements. I like Datto and Verto because they actually check for ransomware when making those backups. And so what happens is if there's a ransomware identified or malware identified in the backup, it will remove it so that if you do get hacked from a ransomware perspective, you're not just reinstalling or restoring that ransomware back onto your network.
Awesome. It seems like we have quite a few technological cybersecurity people on the call. Pepper Brooks wants to know again, do you have any insights into the balloon things? Do you,
Oh my gosh, nothing more than what me and my friend them talk about over a beer, but it's super scary for sure. But the reality is it's like this is like geopolitical now, and like we are not, I hate to say it, like we are the biggest hackers in the world. I don't know if we realize that. We talk a lot about Russia and China, but I don't know if you know the US is like #1 and Israel when it comes to like getting into everybody's IP and understanding. That's how they kind of know. The reason they know when people are stealing from us is because, you know, we're kind of on that side too, and we're kind of the experts when it comes to that. I don't know if you heard the response from China about the balloon, but there was like 50 recorded balloons that were flown over China last year. Yeah. With a lot of tech on it, right? And I don't know if you knew that we shot down those balloons with F-22s and F-35s that also have like the capability to have nuclear warheads on them. So we're actually, in my opinion, we are not the ones to kind of say, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not without sin,
yes,
you know,
yes.
when it comes to these things. But again, it's not, I'm not trying to start I'm just a little man from Trelawney and I just call it as I see it. But, you know, I'm sure America is right for the way they do things, but you know, we are just as active when it comes to black hatting and being on top of like hacking people's technology and understanding you know, looking at people not only using balloon, but we actually have like a satellite network that can kind of go down to like street level pictures, right? So it's just about what side of the fence you're on for those things.
No, this has been absolutely amazing. We do have a couple more minutes. We can take maybe another question or two. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. This has been really, really great. I think it's safe to say because of my old schoolness, I'm not old, just have an old schoolness. Prior to this tech series, I must be honest, I had really, in a way, shied away from technology. But certainly at this point, I'm definitely inspired to learn a little bit more and to do a little bit more. And while it can seem scary, I think, you know, the information that you've provided with us today, it's just, let's just prepare ourselves because ultimately the world in itself is scary, you know, so let's get the information that we need in order to navigate most effectively. And I think you've done that very well from the sense of cybersecurity and data protection today. So thank you so much. If there are no other questions, I think what we can do, I do have a little sort of poll or question to ask in a moment. Let's see. I want to get excellent information today. Where can we find this in the older episodes? I think one of our BBPA staff can respond to that. Thank you so much, Black Business Live. Outstanding session. Thank you so much for this fabulous Tech Talk series. Lots of great insights and advice. Darace, you've been amazing. I promise I will go and visit your restaurant on Eglinton West, Wraps.
Please do.
I will have myself something nice to eat and I will let you know when I go there. But it's been absolutely incredible. The poll is up. So what I would like to do is just ask, you can maybe just stay on screen with me, Darace. Did you join all 3 of the Talk Tech sessions? If you can maybe just respond. The poll is up. I believe there is oh, so we've been answering already. Is that right? So we're responding as we're speaking. Okay. So, and then the other question is, would you like more tech sessions? And we're getting 100% yes. Was the Tech Talk series helpful for your business? Absolutely. And what topics would you like to hear more about? So we're hearing AI, cybersecurity, and both. Wow. Cleopatra says, yes, more please. This one was my first. Thank you so much for saying that, Cleopatra. We'll definitely take that into consideration. This has absolutely been incredible. Great session. Thank you for answering all my questions. Moy, let's go to wraps. Yes, Pepper Brooks, let's do it. Let's do it. So let's
add
do
my
it.
contact if somebody was asking for my information. So there it is. You can add me there. I'm always available on LinkedIn, or you can reach out if you wanted actually, if you have a second, I can just bring up my calendar invite and you guys can book time with me if you need.
Cleopatra wants to go to Wraps. Okay, so we're gonna go sit down, have a nice little sit down dinner at Wraps. Are you guys, can we dine in?
You can. It's probably not the best dine-in environment, to be honest, but I don't mind. I mean, it's a good takeout spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. So I mean, we can probably dine in and talk some cybersecurity and data protection some more, but I think the information that you've given today is it's amazing because we all use technology. We use Instagram. Oh, Francis does have something to say. We use all these social media platforms. So let's unmute Francis and can we unmute her?
Thanks, Moy. Somebody has, and Darace, this was awesome. Somebody has a question regarding when the Rise Up pitch winners will be announced, and they will be announced on the 31st of March in a public forum at the Globe and Mail downtown. But more information is available, will be available on the BBPA website shortly. I just wanted to answer that question because it's I didn't want it to go unanswered. Thanks, Moy.
I appreciate that. I think we might have missed that somehow, but thank you so much, Francis, for sharing that with us. But it's been great. Now, just by a round of applause, can we just tell this wonderful, brilliant young man, Darace Rose, can we just tell him thanks by our virtual responses here? We do have some reactions. Show him some love, my fellow Jamaican, to show him some love. This has been great, Darace. Thank you once again on behalf of the BBPA. We thank you so much for sharing with us today, and we certainly hope to have you back, okay?
Sure, yeah, thank you. And it's an honor for me to communicate this to the community. I started on Eglinton. That's where my drive for entrepreneurship came from. And it's just an honor for me to service the community with this information. So please call on me anytime you need to get information or if there's a cybersecurity issue that you want to discuss.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who've joined in, we thank you also. Give yourselves a round of applause just for joining and really just engaging and asking the questions. You know, we do this all for you, for the community. So we're so glad that you've taken time out of your lunch hour to join us. And please feel free to share the links. Sharing truly is caring. Please feel free to share the links. This is great information. We hope to have the recordings up. Link provided was during it. Okay, so I'm seeing another question in the chat and I don't want to miss that either. And that's with Quincy, is it? As for the Rise Up competition, all there was to do was sign up through the link provided, ? Was there any additional application requirements? I believe the application is closed, Francis, is that right?
That's correct. But whoever is asking the question, just email me, francis@bbpa.org, and I will direct you to the right source for your answers.
Okay, so
and Moy, I don't know if you have next week's promotional material. I do not believe we do, but I want to let everybody know next week we get into a day in the life of Loblaw. Loblaw Companies Limited, one of Canada's largest retailer, and because we have so many of our entrepreneurs who have made it successfully into that space, we need everybody to sign up and just get to know more about this organization. Thanks, Moy.
Absolutely. Well, I think that was it. But next week, a day in the life. So you won't see me. You most likely will see Nadine Spencer, who will host that session. If I'm wrong, please don't come after me. But I believe typically it's Nadine that will host those a day in the life session. So please, you're in for a treat next week, Wednesday at 12 p.m. So do join in, do share the links. I certainly will be joining. Francis, thank you. And the BBPA staff, you've been so incredible in just providing the help that we need to make these sessions possible and successful. Darace Brown, once again, everyone, on behalf of the BBPA, I look forward to seeing you next week. I thank you and God bless you. God bless you. Let's keep the conversation going, okay? Let's keep the momentum, keep the conversation going. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.
The Business Advisory Implementation Development Service. The BATES program is a major step forward.
I believe in the economy of women. I believe in creating our own space, creating our own financial freedom.
How do you get business? How do you get financing? How do you get approved for government loans?
We have to understand and recognize what the barriers are, and then we work to break those barriers down.
We're going to sit with you and we're going to wrap you around the best experts we have.
So time is money. The more time you lose, the more money you're losing.
Success does leave clues, and if you pick up on those clues, you too can ascend in that same path.
As an organization, we've really made specific efforts to help you pivot so that you can thrive.